Hello, my name is Daniel Stillwell, and I am the editor of the IFTA e-newsletter. And we have with us today Emily Emerson. She is a student at Antioch, living outside of Seattle, Washington. So thank you so much, Emily, for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Daniel.
So my first question that I like to ask all of our people is, what kind of mental health practitioner do you identify as, and what does that look like in your context?
So for me, I really like to just show up as myself. A lot of what I draw from is narrative, EFT, solution focused. I like some Bowen work. And obviously, for me, tying into my presentation is this backbone of person of the therapist, which really has this idea that we are wounded healers.
Mm.
And it's about acknowledging and knowing ways that we can use our own woundedness and that aspect to connect with our clients on a deeper level. And so I show up as myself. I have a bunch of toys and stuff in my office that are things I've had clients comment on them, and it's brought us in these beautiful conversations that we're able to explore because I'm comfortable being like, yes, this is the toy that I would have on my desk at home, and it's here in my office.
Wonderful, wonderful. In terms of professional identity, which one are you developing through your training right now?
So really, I'm considered a clinical intern right now and really focusing on that work. I've worked in nonprofit and community services for 6 years now or so, but really working on getting through my internship and working to get my LMFTA.
Wonderful. All right. So you are here to talk a little bit about the work that you are doing and your presentation that you're giving at IFTA in Japan. So why don't
Yes.
you talk us through a little bit about the presentation and how it connects to either clinical or research passions that you feel like you have?
Yeah, so I am presenting on sort of this call of action for more person of the therapist framework in supervision specifically.
Mm,
So at Antioch, I had the opportunity to be a part of the person of the therapist training cohort. And so for my first year of it, we went through family of origin, multicultural, clinical skills, all of this with the person of the therapist lens in the background. And that really it gave me comfortableness in this fact that okay, I am okay as I am right now. Who I am is what's going to make me great. And as I started my internship, I was just like, oh gosh, how do I continue to bring this in? One of the core things is that we're taught that this is a skill. It's a thing, the self of the therapist. We have to practice it. We have to get used to it. We have to acknowledge it and use it. It's not just something we can read about and it's done. And I was like, it was such a huge part of my master's program. It was kind of, I felt alone, like getting
mm.
off into internship and being like, oh gosh, where is this at now? People aren't hearing of it. My supervisors, I'm giving them papers about it. And so I was like, there has to be some way. And so I looked, and there is. Aponte and Kissel have a beautiful forum to go through how you can implement this in supervision and the
Hmm.
ways that it works. It brings out more. It gives a chance to open up and really see what's going on. And so I've had the chance to explore this with my own supervisor. I sent her everything, was like, hey, I know you haven't done this. Can you try this with me? Yeah. And she was open to it.
Cool.
And even just in my own side, like knowing my own signature theme, knowing what that was, having that structure to it helped me so much on my cases and made me feel so much more comfortable. And so I'm really just presenting on this need that this needs to be out there more.
Lovely. How do you see it being applicable to different cultures and different paradigms around the world?
I think that person of the therapist is beautiful in that because it just says that who you are is what is good. And so I think acknowledging your own culture, bringing that in, it's really this focus on accepting who you are as an identity with a therapist. And so for me, I bring in a lot of my own geek and pop culture into the
Hmm.
work that I do. Other cultures, they're going to be bringing in who they are. And so I think it matches really well with this idea of open up, be yourself. There's room to be a therapist and a wounded person, that we're just humans in the room together.
So I think some people will hear what you're saying as exciting, but also scary. And it certainly is. But one of the
Yeah.
reasons I think people might be apprehensive to this is terms like wounded healer sound like we are self-disclosing a lot, or that we are um, letting our therapy be about us and our woundedness instead of
Yeah.
about our clients. How have you been taught and internalized those hard questions?
Yeah. So, I mean, personal therapist really breaks down into the three core pillars, which is knowledge of self, access to self, and then utilization of self. And so it's about knowing how you use yourself. When you feel those feelings of, say, countertransference, there's something going on. That gives us a clue. And it's about knowing how to artfully use that. Um, I can think of a client myself. So I identify as queer and transgender, and this is a woman that probably would not have been very comfortable knowing those things about me. And I felt this anxiety in myself. I felt this idea of like, what if she knows I am not a woman in her view?
Mm,
And yet, in the conversation that this was, she was struggling with her own identity as a woman. And so I was able to kind of be aware of myself and that own anxiety that I have. She's having a lot of that same fear.
yeah.
She's having a lot of that same anxiety that other people will not see her as a woman.
Hmm.
And so, using what I know, using that, we had really great conversations about what it means to develop your own gender identity,
Hmm.
what it means to acknowledge yourself, and how are the ways that you define your own womanhood.
Hmm. Yeah, that
And
idea of
so,
tapping into these sensation data points and recognizing that that doesn't mean we have to prescribe or tell them how to be, but we get to use that as a way to be curious or hold space for things that we may not have planned at the beginning of session to get into.
exactly. And the more you do it, it's you get comfortable. You're
Hmm.
like, oh, I know what this feeling is. Okay, how do I use this? The end goal is always that you're using self in service of the client.
Yes,
And
love that.
so, yeah, we're not, just bringing our own stuff in there, but it's saying, I know this. I am a human as well. How can I
Hmm.
use this in a positive effect? If someone tells me something, yeah, that's scary.
Hmm.
That is really scary. How do you keep yourself safe? I would be scared at that. How has this shown up for you?
Hmm.
It really is, I think, one of my professors has talked about this artful self disclosure.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is awesome and exciting, and I'm sure people will get to enjoy it at the actual presentation.
Yes.
But those of the community who aren't able to be there or whatever, I'm glad that we've had an opportunity to share it here as well. Before we wrap up, tell us a little bit about yourself, personally or professionally, just to sort of humanize the scholar in you.
Yeah, no. And so, like I said, I bring in a lot of my own geek and pop culture. I will also be presenting a poster about POTS and the ways it can look up. I presented this at the Washington State Marriage and Family Therapy Association conference this past year with a colleague. We made a Taylor Swift therapy deck.
Ha.
Um, so we were both Swifties. We were
Hmm.
watching her concert. And we were just cracking jokes as you do in grad school, but like, oh, this song is totally EFC. This song is totally CBT. This song is so narrative. And we're like, what would Taylor Swift therapy look like? And so again, we knew ourselves. We were able to feel comfortable in bringing ourselves in as Swifties. And so we made a therapy deck. And so I can have conversations with clients that identify as that. Oh my gosh, when I hear this song, this is what I think about. What are your thoughts on this? What is your snow on the beach moment?
Mm,
And
mm.
knowing that it's okay to ask something like that in the therapy room, that
Yeah,
we can still
it's
be ourselves and professionals.
and so much of the symbology or the metaphor in therapy is what are these shared anchor points that we can make meaning through. And so
Yes.
if Swiftie lyrics are part of that, then it's fantastic. Uh,
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you for being with us here today. Everyone, this is Emily Emerson, and hopefully you'll hear more or see her in Japan or see her work in the future. So I really appreciate you being here.
Yes, thank you so much, Daniel.
All right.